With Miranda Khan, J.D. Hayworth back with you on America's Forum. Miranda, it is good to be back on the anchor desk.
Nice to have you back.
Happy to be here, but I'm concerned to hear about a place I've visited once before. Camp Liberty, it was called, a main base for U.S. troops during our presence in Iraq. Now converted into a camp that's really more like a prison for some 3,000 Iranian dissidents there in Iraq. It's something we need to talk about as you take a look at the conditions in that camp involving some 3,000 Iranian dissidents. At any rate, with us, kindly staying with us via telephone, Alan Dershowitz of the Harvard Law School. He's a professor there and also the author of Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War. And Ali Safavi joins us from Newsmax, Washington. Ali is the Near East, the president of Near East Policy Research. Ali, let's begin with you. Tell us about the saga of these Iranians now in Iraq.
Yes, good morning, JD, and thank you for having me on the show. As you said, there are actually right now, there used to be 3,000, but now there are 2,500 Iranian dissidents, the main opponents of the Iranian regime, who have been languishing in this prison-like camp, euphemistically called Camp Liberty. And they are under very, very difficult circumstances, facing imminent threat of attacks, given the deteriorating situation in Iraq, with ISIS, with the Shiite militias, who of course are acting at the behest of the Iranian regime. And of course, one issue of enormous concern for everyone, including thousands of their family members in the United States, is the fate of one of the camp residents, Safavi, who's 60 years old, and he's been in detention and arrested by the Iraqi government on some bogus charges while traveling outside the camp, and has been held since March 16. And despite the fact that the UNHCR and even the U.S. Embassy have urged that he should be released and returned to the camp, the Iraqi government refuses to do so. And members of Congress are very angry about this. The chair of the subcommittee on the Middle East in the Foreign Affairs Committee, Chairman Rosletin, wrote a letter to the U.S. ambassador to Iraq, as well as to the Iraqi ambassador here in Washington. But of course, this is just one example of how the Iraqi government, despite the change in government and the departure of Maliki, who was basically a stooge of Iran, is continuing to restrict and place limitations on the residents of this camp, obviously with the blessing and at the orders of the regime in Tehran, which views these dissidents as an existential threat.
Ali, we want to get Alan's reaction to what's going on at the camp.
Well, this is one of the great scandals of modern American history. The United States made a promise to the residents of the original Camp Ashraf, that they, in exchange for putting down their arms and not defending themselves, that the United States would defend them and guarantee their safety and treat them as protected people. And when the United States left Iraq, we just left them in a lurch, and the Iranian government would love nothing more than to take these people and kill them, as they killed tens and thousands of dissidents. And we, as Americans, made a promise to protect every one of these people, and we have to stand by our promise. This individual who's being held as a hostage. There's no plausible claim against him. It was a minor traffic accident, which wasn't his fault. But they're holding him as a hostage, and the key is to get these 2,500 people out of Iraq and out of Camp Liberty as soon as possible. And the United States has to begin to take some of these people in. And the United States has said, we'll take them in, some of them, if they renounce their allegiance to the organization they belong to. That's unconstitutional. You can't make people renounce allegiance. These people have renounced terrorism. There's been no acts of terrorism for years and years and years. They are not a terrorist organization. They're not on the terrorist list. And we owe an obligation to take some of them in, to have some of them taken in by other countries in Europe.
And Alan, we will have to leave it right there. Alan Dershowitz and Ali Safavi, we thank you for the update. We'll continue to keep an eye on this important story.